not such good news for Wayne, of course. He's out of a job. But Birmingham City, I've got to say, Alex, not for the first time, and I want it known that to the listeners, this is how it works. You were on this very early. Obviously, you got word of it early, and then it's our job to try and stand it up, which we did do. But the fact of the matter is, Wayne is out of a job, and he has gone from Birmingham City. Any news on who's going to come in?
Well, I think it was interesting that there are whispers that John Eustace would be open to return to St Andrews. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. I think Simon's right in what he was saying, that maybe the issue that Birmingham fans had was not so much replacing John Eustace, because maybe they were in a little bit of a false position in the league, but it was the appointment of Rooney trying to completely transform the football that has seen them plummet down the table. So I'm not sure that a remarriage, if you like, is going to happen. Lee Carsley, I think, could be one to keep an eye on. He was interested in the Stoke City job. He's a former Birmingham player. And, of course, Ashley Cole, who I think at this moment in time is going to remain at Birmingham, was working with Carsley at the under-21. So that could be putting 2 and 2 together and making 10. But I know Lee Carsley potentially is looking for another challenge. Gary Rowett has been mentioned as well. I think they'll move quickly, Birmingham. I think they can't afford to let it drift for too long.
I mean, Simon, the names that Alex threw in there, all of them, to me, I would have thought could be a more than decent replacement.
Depends how much they think they're in it. Depends how much they think they've got a problem. You know, at this moment in time, they're outside the bottom 3, and they're outside the bottom 3 by a reasonable amount of points. Now that can change very quickly, and if you think this squad of players has undergone such a problem over the last 15 games that they really are in a relegation battle, you ain't going to Lee Carsley, and you damn sure ain't going to Ashley Cole, because you're going to find yourself in a similar position, albeit slightly more elevated on Lee Carsley. Because
you're thinking more Warnock, that kind of experience.
It's very formulaic and it's very lazy of me, but it depends upon the problem. If the problem is you really are now looking over your shoulder and you really do think that there's a problem going forward, then you need to get out of this problem. And this problem means you cannot get yourself relegated. You need to build for next season. This season's gone. Yeah. This season could have been something. You threw it away, and then probably got to pay someone a load of money to walk out the door. You need someone that's going to stabilise it, and then you can look again.
So, Alex, since you joined us in the last few minutes, I'm looking at 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 messages from Newcastle fans. Alex Crook, can we expect a busy January? Can they?
I'm not sure they can, Jim, to be honest. I think Eddie Howe was talking about it last week, about the fact they're having to operate under strict financial parameters. I know that Calvin Phillips is somebody they would like to bring in on loan, but there is a fairly hefty loan fee that Manchester City are asking for, and they aren't the only club in for him. I think Dubravka didn't do his chances of keeping his number 1 spot in the absence of Nick Pope any harm at all. He was brilliant in defeat at Anfield last night, made save after save. So I think if someone like Aaron Ramsdale was to come in, that would have to be a summer transfer. And I've done a piece in my notebook this morning, actually, looking ahead to the summer. It could be, this is not definitive, but it's a possibility that Newcastle have to cash in on one of their crown jewels this summer, the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, Sven Botman or Alexander Isak, maybe to do what Aston Villa did with Jack Grealish, bring in big money for one of their star names and use it to rebuild the squad, because they are really tight up against the FFP deadline.
You think, I mean, Simon, looking at it from this point as to where they are and the run they're on, number 1, are they able to do big business? Number 2, will they?
I'm surprised to understand from Alex that they're up against financial fair play. Why have they lost 105 million quid over the last 3 years?
I think they're just so keen to stay on the right side of those regulations. Obviously, from a marketing perspective, they can't bring in the type of cash that the likes of Manchester United and Chelsea and even Manchester City to a certain extent. They have invested quite heavily in that playing squad. Obviously, they sold Alan Saint-Maximin in the last transfer window to try and help balance the books. And I think if Eddie Howe is going to have a real go in the transfer market, if they could get 100 million quid, which is the release course for Bruno Guimaraes, they might see that as the most economical way to go about it. Wouldn't necessarily go down brilliantly with the fans, but maybe that's also a reflection, Simon, of the fact that Newcastle are probably ahead of schedule, getting into the Champions League last season. They still don't really have a Champions League squad, do they?
You're saying they can do big business, Simon. There's nothing stopping them.
I'm surprised to understand that they would be in a position where they can't, because there's been a regime previously that was very prudent and didn't spend any money and only spent what it had and only wanted to post profits if it possibly could. And I'd be surprised, given the value of what they've paid for players and some of the transactions that they do, that they can't go again with another 150 million, a couple of 100 million over the next 2 transfer windows. I'd be surprised if they don't. Now, how they do that, if they're trying to build a team, that's going to achieve things, they're not going to sell their best players, are they?
Okay. What about West Ham? What are the early indications of the business they may or may not do in this window?
Yeah, I think David Moyes is certainly scouring the market. One player who both West Ham and Crystal Palace like actually is a player down in League One, Ronnie Edwards at Peterborough. Darren McAntony, pal of ours, I think knows eventually that he will have to sell, but I think it's going to take decent money. Was it £10 million they got for Ivan Toney with add-ons? I think Dara will be looking to recoup that for Ronnie Edwards, 20 years of age, and England under-20 international, regarded pretty much as the best English defender outside the Premier League. I'm told that Palace in particular have had numerous offers rejected. There's interest from Belgium and Germany as well, and West Ham very keen. So let's keep an eye on that one between now and the end of the window.
Okay, Simon, you were at Tottenham over the Christmas period. Tottenham and Ange, what are you hearing?
Well, we know they want a defender. He's been quite public about that. Jean-Claire Todibo is someone who a lot of clubs are looking at in the Premier League, not just Spurs, but Chelsea and Manchester United as well. At the moment, Nice don't want to do business this window. One player I think Tottenham will get over the line and might happen quite quickly is Radu Dragusin. He's a Romanian centre-back, plays in Genoa. The fee will be in the region of 20 to £25 million, and Spurs, I'm told, are confident of getting that deal done.
Okay, Conor Gallagher, is he going to be in the move this window, do you think, Alex?
I don't think he will. I don't think he's in any hurry. Obviously, the vibes coming out of Chelsea are that if they get a big money offer, and we know Tottenham in particular are monitoring the situation, then they would be willing to do business, which is a slightly strange one, not just amongst the Chelsea fans, but even his own teammates, I think, are a little bit perplexed by this because he's been made captain by Mauricio Pochettino, probably alongside Cole Palmer. He's been their best player this season. But again, we're talking about FFP, and obviously Chelsea have pushed the envelope on that front in recent windows. If they were to sell Conor Gallagher for £45-50 million, it would be 100% profit on the balance sheet. But I think it'd be a bad move in the eyes of the Chelsea fans.
Do you see sense in that deal, Simon? I mean, it's profit, but what's your take?
Again, I mean, I watched Chelsea on Saturday and I thought that certain parts of the game they looked impressive, other parts of the game they certainly didn't. Conor Gallagher's their captain. I mean, if the rumours are true that they are starting to sell players because their sole focus is to try and balance the books against some of their profligacy, then that to me is poor, because that's not the object. Mason Mount was one thing. When you start to do it repeatedly and endlessly because you have to rather than you want to, or the relationship between you and the player's broken down to the point where Mason Mount wasn't getting the contract that he wanted and pretty much indicated he wanted to go. So that was an easy decision for them to bank and take the money and profit from it. But then again, also, I look at Conor Gallagher and I think, yeah, he's all right. He's a decent player. He did a decent job for Palace when he was there. But if Chelsea want to get anywhere, then if that's your captain, where are you headed? He's a decent player. He's a decent Premier League footballer. Is he a world beater? I don't think so. Is he what Chelsea need to get them back to where I projected they might be? Not necessarily.
So you don't really see the sense in Tottenham being in, if they are indeed in?
For Tottenham or for Chelsea?
For both, really.
My concern is if Chelsea are selling him because of the necessity to meet financial fair play obligations, then that's a disappointment. But on the other side of the argument, I'm arguing against myself. It's a bit me, myself and Irene moment. Because at the same point, I don't think that he's going to give them the end product that you want from an elite Chelsea side that's spending hundreds of £1 million on players. And Conor Gallagher is your captain.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, Alex.
I can see your argument. Actually, I was having this with a Chelsea fan, this debate. I think if you look at the Chelsea teams of bygone eras, you look at the Didier Drogba's, the Frank Lampards, the John Terrys, certainly Conor Gallagher isn't in that class. The argument that came back from the Chelsea fan was, we're not that football team anymore. For where Chelsea are now, we need Conor Gallagher. Maybe it's a sign of how far they've fallen.
Alex, just before you go, I mean, it's been on my mind recently. We've seen consecutive transfer records broken in previous windows. You hear mixed reports of what this is going to be like. What's your take on it? From your point of view, do you think we're going to see another record-breaking transfer month in January?
I don't think we will. Because I don't think Chelsea, who've been the big spenders in recent windows, will go quite as mad as they have previously. I think Manchester United, if they're going to do any business, it'll probably be in the form of loan signings. I'm not sure that Arsenal are particularly flush for cash, hence the fact that Ivan Toney looks likely to stay at Brentford this window. And then you look at the bottom of the table, I think there's a few owners down there, and I'd include Steve Parish in this, that even in the summer gambled on the fact that Burnley, Luton and Sheffield United would go straight back down and therefore didn't need to splash the cash. I think that probably still remains. Everton, interesting, by the way. We broke this story exclusively on the TalkSPORT website. Jesse Lingard, potentially on a 6-month contract at Everton. We know that Arnaut Danjuma, who isn't getting many minutes, may well terminate his loan from Villarreal. Lingard potentially could be the replacement. That would be an interesting one.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.